I gave my whole office chlamydia.
I need to hear this. This is Wild Yarns with Samara and Sheri. So on today's episode, we are talking all about toxic work environments, horrible bosses, and everything in between.
Yes, I think we've all experienced it. It's definitely a topic everyone can relate to because unfortunately, you know, I think a lot of people have been on the receiving end of being in a toxic workplace or a horrible boss scenario. However, I think in today's workplace, people are a lot more aware of it. I feel like, and you might have had very similar experiences, but I, in my earlier years, copped a lot of shit that would not fly these days in the workplace, like for sure.
Well, because now everyone's kind of doing that quiet quitting thing where they're just doing what they're employed for. And I think people are becoming more aware about, like, what's the point in giving your all when the place you work for doesn't feel the same about you? Like, why go the extra mile when they won't for you? It is just a job.
Yeah, and have you seen, it's trending on TikTok at the moment, where it's like, we're millennial managers, and it's about how like millennial managers, which is where we sort of sit in, we're a lot more chill than older management just because we've gone to hell and back with having boomers manage us that we're like, look, if you need to take a day's leave, that's fine, just let me know and we're fine. Like, we're a lot more chill now than what we were. But I feel like it's interesting. I remember when we were putting together, you know, I was doing the research for this particular podcast episode. I started reflecting back on things that have happened to me in the workplace, like my own sort of toxic stories. And it's interesting, like I remember I would have been only 18 or 19 years old, and prior to being this awesome creative chick, I wanted to work in law and accounting, so very, very corporate. And I went for an interview at quite a well-known accounting, and I say well-known because this is not just a small business. Like, these guys were a bigger business, accounting firm in the city. And I went in for the interview and I could see, you know, there were other people sitting on the seat, you know, waiting to go in for their interviews. And I went in for my interview, and it was a room of about 4 gentlemen. They were a lot older than me. I would say 40s, 50s, you know, older, you know, business owners. And they, or, you know, directors there. And they literally said to me within my first few moments of being in that room, look, sitting out there, you would have walked past some men sitting on the seat. You're going to be more of a cost to the business because you're a woman and you're probably going to want to have children. And that's going to, in the long term, cost our business more because we're going to have to train you. And then at some point, you're going to have kids and go and leave. Mind you, I was always an ambitious young lady. Kids were so far from my mind. Even now, I'm 35 and I'm like, I'm just a child. I can't be having them kids. I'm a child bride. No. So I don't know. If
when you realise it's no longer going to be a teenage pregnancy.
I know. I'm like, it's a teenage pregnancy. I'm 30 fucking 5. Anyways, and yeah, that was just normal. And I was literally, that interview, I didn't get the job because I was a woman with my damn uterus. Fucking hell. But I was in there dancing for my dinner and trying to tell them, like, no, I have all these career goals. Like, I'm just finishing off uni now. Like, I totally don't want to have babies. But that was the context of that whole thing. And I just think that would never, that would be in the news, like, now, if that
I think they
happened.
can't even ask you if you have kids anymore. Like,
Wow.
that can't even be an interview question because it shouldn't play a factor in whether they hire you for the role or not.
Yeah. Like, that happened. And I was like, fuck. And even, like, I did eventually, fortunately enough for me, end up getting a job in law. And I was really excited. Because I was doing it at uni, I was sort of like in a bit of a graduate position. Anyways, my boss, and I hope it's not still like this. If anyone works in law, send us a message and let us know what it was like, if it is still like this. But there was definitely, if you were a grad in the law industry, there was a lot of like that hazing happening. So for example, like it was very normal to get yelled at by your boss. Like I would get screamed at, and I mean properly screamed at, if I gave my boss, I sat sort of close to the printing room. If I heard the printer go and I didn't immediately run to the printer, get whatever was on the printer and run it into his office, and if the printing wasn't hot, I would get screamed at, like absolutely told. And not just like a little bit of like, and it sounds outrageous. This guy has since died and I've left law. But yeah, he'd be like, "Are you dumb? Did you not hear the," and I just think this would never fly. Like, he's like, "Are you dumb? Did you not hear the printer? Are you lazy? Because you're either dumb or you're lazy. Why is this not here?" And I remember once because I used to listen to him speaking and be typing on the dictaphone, and I didn't put a full stop somewhere, and he's like, "Do I need to go through the ABCs with you? Are you dumb?" And I'm like, fuck this. Friday afternoon, I hope this still doesn't happen in law. I hope not. It was very normal and so above board for all the men in the office to leave and go for drinks at the gentlemen's club, and it's almost like the Tatterstills Club where it was only men that was allowed. They would have an early knockoff or, not come back from lunch, and all the women in the office, and these aren't just like legal secretaries and junior staff like me, like women would be left in the office while the men all went off and did this thing, and we'd be just there working on a Friday afternoon.
Honestly, I'm kind of glad he's dead.
Yeah. Well,
he sounds like a see you next Tuesday, and I would not be surprised if he went down below. That's all I'm saying.
Well, this is such a sidebar, and I wasn't going to say this, but fuck it. They found out after he passed that he had, on paper, he had a really beautiful family. They were really lovely, beautiful girls. They found out he had a secret gay lover that he was giving money to on the side, and it came out when they were going through, his wishes after he had died, and that all came out, and I was like, fuck. And that made me want to leave law, and I was like, there has got to be something better than this. This is awful. I don't want to do this anymore, and I'm done. So before we get into the stories and the submissions of this episode, what are your wild, wise words?
So for this episode in particular, I think this is quite fitting. If a business says they're like a family, that's a red flag and you should run immediately.
Here, I've actually worked in a couple of family businesses. Chaos. Utter chaos. It has wound up with people punching in the front of our offices, like family punch on. Like, I would never, unless something happened and, my career's in the toilet, I would never work in a family business again, like, ever.
Yeah. Like, direct translation, if they say we're like a family, it actually means we're going to treat you really bad and not follow any of the workplace rules, but it's okay because we're a family.
You're not going to have any boundaries or anything because we're a family, and that's what family does for each other. Oh, gross. My wild wise words for this episode is, if a business is clearly using ChatGPT to write their job advertisements, red flag.
Yeah, there's clearly something going wrong if they don't even have a person that will be doing that and they're using ChatGPT. Actually, onto that as well with job advertisements, if they don't give some sort of bracket for the pay, red flag.
Yeah. I think in the rise of AI, we're seeing these bots getting smarter and smarter, right? And I think there is, of course, use for ChatGPT. It can help things, but it's very clear, I think, if somebody is not even proofreading the job ad, to give enough of a shit to see that, we're Australian. It is very obvious if American English spelling is in documents. And then even more of a red flag if you get sent an email or any other important piece of collateral from a business that is in American English, or says supercharged too much, or has dumb emojis like the rocket ship emoji. that to me, it's just a bit of lazy practice. If you're going to use ChatGPT, be smart about it, proofread it, and make sure it's at least in,
Well, it makes you wonder, like, because it's cutting corners, it makes you wonder what else the business is cutting corners on.
100%. And I think that is probably something concerning. Or even just things like, I've got a friend at the moment that's looking for work and said to me, this job is paying X amount of super. And the super was lower than what the government has as their mandated super. And I was like, I don't think that's right, man. I think that's a bit low.
Yeah, what are they paying you if that's the super percentage?
Like, yeah, that ain't it. That's not what we're about in 2024, let me tell you.
Okay, so should we get into some of the stories?
Absolutely. So, guys, driving it home, if you have stories, we're always putting like little question bubbles up on our social media. And I put out some questions for wild work confessions, and I got a couple through that are pretty wild, and I'll read them out. And by the way, guys, if you do send in anything, we're not going to say your name. Both of these people truly did not want to be named, and you'll see why soon. So absolutely send in your things and we can make it anonymous. Anyways, here's number 1. I used to bang my boss when I was 20. His girlfriend also worked with us. He was a manager and I was 2IC. He would send her home, lock up, and we'd bang. He went on to star on a very well-known dating show and claimed, I have never cheated on a partner. I'm fairly certain he was with the girlfriend on the show because they are still together now. The real kicker, I just saw last week that he had signed up to my OnlyFans. Thanks for supporting a working gal.
Oh my God. But you hear about that like all the time, especially with the reality dating shows that are based on love. Like, how many times have you heard that they actually had a partner, but they went on the show to get exposure?
Yeah.
Like, it happens all the time.
Totally.
But he sounds like a real winner.
I wish I could tell you who it was, but I'm sworn to secrecy. But I think a lot of our readers or listeners would know.
Let's face it, it could be really any guy that's on a reality dating show.
Could be anyone. It's ambiguous enough that it could be anyone. So the next one, we're going to start really strong. I gave my whole office chlamydia.
I need to hear this.
I was coming out of a long-term relationship working in the real estate industry, and to say our office was promiscuous would have been an understatement. I slept with one of the property managers who, unknown to me, had a more extensive inter-office network than LinkedIn, if you know what I mean. Mind you, it was not her at fault, but myself. Prior to sleeping with her while struggling with my identity outside of my long-term relationship, I had a messy one-night stand. The one-night stand gave me chlamydia and then later sent me a text message to say I should get checked out. I, of course, had it too. The awkwardness didn't stop there, discovering that not only did I get a souvenir from my one-night stand, but our ever incestuous office was rocking the same infectious playlist. Having inadvertently turned the office into a chlamydia hotbed, I retired from my inter-office relations.
I just would love to be a fly on the wall at that office when this all sort of came out.
And you know, there's a few industries that is a bit like, it's like, and sorry to anyone that works in these industries, but real estate, like a few years ago, my Christmas party for my job, I don't work in real estate, was near one of the Ray White ones, and they were feral. Like, they were going off. Like, you know, it's an industry where everyone parties pretty hard. Same with like insurance, those sorts of things. Like, people just...
Look, I'm not surprised with real estate agents. Let's face it.
Yeah.
Like, no one's liking the real estate agents at the moment, so I'm not surprised that they, you know, a little bit dodgy.
Yeah, and so I think he has got it, slept with someone who was already probably had some other things going with other people in the office, and then it's just ripped through the office, which is outrageous. So they need to drug the water cooler with the antibiotics or something there. Like, my gosh.
Just imagine being the HR person in that office.
Oh,
You just sit all of them down in one big group chat.
oh, that to me, I was like, wow. So I also found, so they were my confessions. Again, if you have one, send it in. I found a really interesting thread. Now, this was a thread started by somebody who said, my workplace is really, really boring. What's the craziest / worst things that have happened at your workplace / Christmas party? And it's by a user called Expression Little, and it was only written 44 days ago. A young lady decided to give a young man some oral relief in a closed room. Did I say closed room? I meant photo booth, and all the photos were published on the photo booth website. Now, I have an addition to this, a bit of tea. I won't say the company, but it is a Brisbane-based company. And they had their Christmas party, and their Christmas parties, they're a pretty big business, like a national business, and their Christmas parties are known for getting wild. And they had one of their clients as part of the Christmas party had set up a very similar to this, a photo booth this was many years ago, and it was back when remember when everyone was doing Facebook Lives and Instagram Lives and like, oh, I'm going live. So this business, because they were quite well known, said, we're going to go live at our Christmas party. And it was live in the photo booth. And same thing happened. And that was on. It was running live. People just got so pissed and started having a bit of an oral moment in the photo booth that it was going for a bit before someone else saw it and cut it off and was like, oh, shit.
I wonder who got fired for that.
No one did. That is the thing. No one did, because all the management team were just as drunk and just as poorly behaved. They were passed out. So to crack down on two people when they were very badly behaved, I think it probably got them in a bit of hot water with that particular company. But also, who the fuck thinks it's a good idea to have a live running at a Christmas party? Like,
yeah, especially if that's where the Christmas parties lead to.
Yeah. And it was at a very well-known Brisbane pub. Like, it was just a very loose party. So, yeah. Now, this, comment, and it might be a hint of my humour. Someone wrote, my manager pissed herself on the dance floor, removed her pants and flung them at a colleague's husband. Oh, my God. Woo! The funny part of this are all the comments. Like, the people of Reddit have heard this thing and picked it up and run with it.
What are some of the comments?
Out of nowhere, this punter gets blinded by a wet slap of piss and minge. It must have been very disconcerting. And someone wrote, that's a brilliant sentence. And then, someone else wrote, this could be poetry. Punter gets blinded by a wet slap of piss and minge. And then someone wrote, some people pay big money for such an experience. And someone else wrote, how much exactly? I mean, Christmas can be somewhat expensive. And then someone else commented, yeah, but these are pre-filled stockings. I'm like, please. And then, I read that and I was like, my gosh, your manager doing a wee and throwing it at somebody is hilarious.
Just the next day.
Oh.
The regrets.
Imagine. A colleague who's usually very reserved told me she was going back to her room to watch porn and finger herself. Completely out of context.
Interesting.
So inappropriate. Someone commented, that's an invitation, surely.
That's a HR complaint, surely.
Yeah. And the person said, I'm a woman and she's married, so I didn't see it that way. And then someone else wrote, she could probably use a hand. Purple Inside 1780. This is their story. I worked in an agency and we'd hired a new account executive to start in the new year, but invited her to our Christmas party. We'd booked out a bar and restaurant in Chelsea, so based in the UK. open bar, champagne, the whole shebang. She enjoyed her evening with full enthusiasm right until the point she ventured towards the toilets downstairs in the basement. She tripped at the top, fell down the stairs, broke her leg, and shat herself on the way down. She was stretched out by London ambulance in pungent glory through the partying throng on the ground floor. She never returned to start the job with us.
How did they know she shat herself?
Oh, she might have had poo on her butt.
Well, I'm just assuming that she would have like...
They would have... someone would have had to have found her before the ambulance was called. So
Yeah.
she's fallen, shit herself, hurt herself pretty bad. And then what a way to meet all your new colleagues. Like you're getting pushed through in a stretcher covered in shit with broken ankle.
To be fair, I wouldn't have gone to start that job. If that was me, I'd be like, well, yeah, that's no longer a possibility.
That's exactly
That
it.
door has now closed.
I have upset myself and ruined everything. And they're an agency. They're pretty like, if it's like an advertising agency, they're pretty loose too. So for that to be your starting moment,
Yeah, your first impression.
Nah,
I would be back on the job applications. So did you hear about this story? It was kind of making the rounds not that long ago. A boss docked one of their workers $300 from their pay for using their mobile during work.
Ooh wee. Go on. There's more to this story because immediately, I am good at English. No, my immediate thoughts are that's dodgy, but go on. There might be
So this
something.
actually happened in Australia. So basically, the work, which has been, it's actually birdies in the valley.
Oh, we've had some times in birdies. Oh my, I think they're freaking staff on phones is the least of their problems. But anyways.
Yeah, so the staff has come out. This particular employee posted this to Reddit with a photo of their pay slip, which shows that they had been docked for like 5-hour deduction for mobile phone use during shift, unauthorized.
5 hours is a long deduction, especially for somebody working in hospitality. It's not the greatest rates. That is a big deduction.
And I was like reading the comments because this was posted to Facebook and you get all the loons there.
Yeah.
And like it's very divided on opinion with this. But basically they got deducted. They've posted this up being like, I work in hospitality and have been deducted 5 hours of pay for mobile phone use. I'm a bartender. I single-handedly work at this place from open to close. Yes, I did use my phone when there was no customers. Is this legal?
I feel like it's highly illegal. I don't think you can just dock people's pay for not doing what you want them to do. I think there's other steps. You know, I don't work in HR, but I think there's other steps you got to take.
Well,
that's just not docking people.
But yeah, I definitely don't think it's illegal because imagine just random bosses deciding to dock their staff's pay because, oh, well, remember that time like there wasn't anyone in the store and you just stood there? I'm going to dock your pay for that period of time because you weren't really working. Like, I do understand mobile phones, but why don't they just have a policy not having any mobile phones in the area? When I worked in retail, we had to keep them in our locker. If you caught with your mobile phone on the floor, it would get taken away. But, okay, let's hear it from the boss's perspective. The owner says that this staff member had been talked to on multiple occasions for excessive personal mobile phone use. Normally, all you have to do is have a conversation about this issue with a staff and they'll move forward. He was warned on his phone use that it was excessive. He was also reminded of the policy, she said, and he wouldn't do it again. The owner said she called the worker several times throughout his shift to ask him to get off his phone. They've also got a photo up on this of him clearly using it, so obviously they've got cameras and they were watching them, claiming that he was watching movies and scrolling through social media fewer than 25 minutes into the shift. I don't have a problem with someone checking their messages as a 20-second thing and then going back to their job and putting it in their pocket. But there is a big difference between that scenario and what is happening here. He started at 12 and by 12:25 he was on his phone and wasn't doing any of the tasks for the day. This was exceptionally frustrating as we had already talked about this on multiple occasions.
Still illegal. I see where the boss is coming from because in a past role of mine, I've had to, at expos and things like that, manage staff working at those expos. And I get it. It can be boring when your booth isn't very busy and, people are sitting on their phones. It is just hard to control. But I'm not going to say to one of them, I'm not going to pay you for an hour because I think that's, it just wouldn't fly.
Well, I haven't worked for anyone for quite a while, but to me it is crazy to have, because just the places I worked at, it was a no phones policy, and you just wouldn't have your phone because it would just get taken off you and you would get in trouble, you'd get a warning, and so I just, never did it, and that was it. So I think it is kind of fair for the boss to let them be able to check their phones every so often and not have an issue with that. And the employee was definitely taking the piss by watching movies. Because, when I worked retail, if there was no one and there was nothing to do, you had done all your tasks, all you were allowed to do was stand and just wait for someone because they wanted you to be available to serve, to be approachable. And if you were on your phone, that's obviously not going to happen because the customer's not going to want to interrupt that. So I think, the employer in letting them check their phones, having their phones on the floor, oh my God, I'm pronouncing that terribly, is kind of quite fair to begin with, and this employee did take the piss, but I don't agree with them just docking the pay.
I don't think you can do
Why
that.
not just fire them?
Yeah, exactly. Walk them.
If this has been multiple occasions, why didn't they just fire them before doing this? I just don't get the logic behind this.
Yeah.
Or get one of the managers that is there to say, please give me your phone.
Yeah, I actually think the only way forward that would have probably been easier for this employer is to, if they've already issued warnings, is to say, I've issued warnings, this is your last pay, and it's because you're on your telephone too much.
Yes, well, someone did ask if this was legal, and it has been replied to saying, absolutely not. They may be able to give you warnings of unauthorized phone use during work hours or reduce your shifts in the future, but they cannot deduct your pay because of this. And then someone else has replied saying, I'm a senior payroll officer. That deduction is 100% illegal. Contact the Fair Work Ombudsman. Oh my God.
Wow. It's interesting because Birdie's, if you're not from Brisbane or you don't know of this bar, it is quite a big, well-known bar, and it is a part of a big group of bars as well. This is not just a small fish sort of thing. This is quite big.
But yeah, when I was reading the comments for this one, because it was obviously posted up on Facebook, and that's where all the boomers live. Oh my God, it was back in our day. We never had this. Yeah. We worked hard. Kids these days don't work.
That's it. It's because they were the fuckers that were yelling at people like me because the printing wasn't hot enough. That's what they were doing. They were fucking yelling at everyone. So what was the outcome of that? Did he end up getting his money back? It
didn't say anything about that, but it did say that he had resigned, which is probably the best for everyone around because they probably don't want him as an employee and he doesn't want to be there.
They should have just fired him. My gosh. They had very, grounds for it. So
yeah. Okay, so let's get into the first Reddit story, and this one comes from Am I the Arsehole? So it goes, am I the asshole for ignoring my boss's texts and calls during vacation?
No. Oh my God. What?
Yeah, without even needing to read the story.
Case closed. Absolutely.
On to the next one.
You know what? this fucking story already screams, is we're just like a family here. Well,
Okay. I took 1 week vacation last week. I didn't have any plans to travel and I wanted to rest at home. I already met my deadlines, so I didn't think that there would be anything pressing that my team members couldn't handle without me. When my boss found out that I would still be in the country, she later mentioned to the team in a meeting that I would have to be on call and working during my vacation. Not a vacation then.
Unless you're saving lives.
It's not a vacation then.
No, unless you're fucking... Yeah, anyways, go on.
In the past, my boss has blown up my cell phone and team when I was sick or at an approved appointment because of an issue. My boss relies on me to advise and solve issues even though she's joined the team around the same time I did. I would always try to refuse, but my boss would guilt trip me or intimidate me into working. While I was on vacation, my boss texted and called me about an issue, but I had enough and I ignored it. My job is demanding since I put in 15 to 20 hours of overtime work a week, but it's an entry-level position. I don't even think they need me to advise or offer solutions, but supposedly no one else in the company can. When I returned to work yesterday, I opened my Teams to a great deal of missed messages and some deleted messages from my boss. My boss immediately called a team meeting to criticize me and told me that I abandoned my duties during an emergency, that I let my team members down who had to work overtime, and I showed that I don't care for my work, that I knew I was supposed to be on call, ready to work, and I was going to be home all week, and I blindsided them. I feel that if I'm on vacation, I should be allowed to take a break. On the other side, I was home all week and could have accessed work through my laptop. All of the VPs work a few hours every day during their vacation, but I'm not a VP, as someone pointed out to me. Am I the arsehole?
Oh my gosh, how awful. This poor person, especially it's an entry-level job. So that to me, like, suggests a workplace that hasn't done proper planning or is just lazy and just like, oh, well, we know she'll help, and there's got to be some boundaries. You know, I feel like the days of the hustle culture are done. Like, people are just, I think COVID broke a lot of us. Like, people just... I think coming through COVID, there's just so much less emphasis on being 100% available for your work.
Yeah, I think it gave people time to reflect on like what is truly important.
Yes.
And toxic work environments are not, because let's face it, you could give your all to the company, but they're not going to do the same for you, and they never will. And I think people have started to realize that, like the fact that this person is going on vacation and like the definition is to take time off work, that is a vacation, and they're still expected to work, then it's like, well, what is even the point of vacation?
Absolutely. I read a book quite recently. It's called The Invisible Load, and I think it's by one of the I'll find it and put it in here. Anyways, The Invisible Load, it talks about how if you don't disengage from your workplace, it actually, especially on women's bodies, we carry a lot of stress and actually can affect our hormones and things like that. And it is so important, even when you're eating food, to disengage from work. It is so bad. Like, if you're not just, eating food and like you're trying to hammer out some emails, it's actually bad for your digestion. And a doctor wrote this book. So I think this woman, she should be able to go on holidays. Like, that's totally right and fair.
Well, I don't think her gender was stated in the thing, but whoever this is...
Yeah, you can't carry that mental load with you. It's so bad for your mental health.
Okay, so these are some of the comments. If they need you that bad, they should promote you. Otherwise, your boss is getting paid to figure it out. That's their job.
Yes, 100%.
are they paying you for those hours that you would have had spent during your holiday, or were you not getting paid at all? It's a very good point. If they want you to work, then
it's not a holiday.
Yeah.
It's worked time. And one of my last jobs, we used to do a lot of activations. So lots of like events, things going on. And there was one, most of them, because I was sort of worked in their head of marketing role, most of those activations I was available to go to and help on. But there was one particular one I couldn't because a close friend of mine was getting married, and I couldn't just not go to the wedding. So very similar to this person, cleared a day off. I went above and beyond to set up this event. And it turns out that the manager on site did a fucking shit job. It was the worst experience in that I was at a wedding. My phone would not stop ringing because people were calling to ask me menial questions. It was so many people had rung me in this course of this about dumb things like, we don't know, like someone's got tried to pay with cash. What do we do? I'm like, take the cash or just say, no, we're only doing FPOS only. Like it was just such menial stuff. It caused me so much stress and anxiety, I quit the job. I was like, I'm not doing this. This is not it for me. And I found somewhere else that was more aligned with my personal boundaries.
Someone did write, she later mentions in the team meeting that I would have to be on call and work during my vacation. Why didn't OP shut that down straight away? You should have gone to the boss right away or in a meeting afterwards and said no. But OP allowed the idea of work then.
I still think like not everybody, is very direct with that sort of stuff. Like not everybody feels super comfortable. I don't think I still side on the OP's side here. I don't think it should be an expectation if you're on a leave day or a vacation
Especially
day
if it's an entry-level job. You're not a VP. Yeah, okay, VPs get paid the big bucks, so they're going to work more. Well, they should be working more. And honestly, it sounds like your boss is probably palming off most of the job on you so that way they work less because shouldn't have been their issue to figure out stuff while you're not there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and someone does bring that up, being like, all of the VPs work a few hours every day during their vacation. Are they paying you like a VP? No. Well, then they can get stuffed.
Yeah, that's it. And like when you're in a VP role or anything that high up, traditionally your salary package would include shares or something in the business. So you're actually benefiting from working extra hours because, there might be some sort of share structure happening there that, if the business benefits, you get some remuneration for that.
Yeah.
So there is that financial incentive for them.
Okay, so on to the next story. This one is another one from Emma the Arsehole, and this was posted ages ago, like 5 years ago.
Oof.
And by the way, for the last story, the guy was voted not the arsehole.
Clearly.
Am I the arsehole for not accepting my boss's request to follow me on social media?
Ooh, interesting. Go on.
It's been a couple of months since I've started working at this small pet clinic, and I like to think I have a good relationship with my co-workers. They're fairly older than me, and we have decades of years between us, so while I think of them as friends, I don't really speak with them as I would with people my age. My boss recently created an Instagram and has found my Facebook account, both of which she has sent me requests to follow and be my friend. There are things on my social media that I don't feel comfortable letting her see, especially because it is a professional work environment, so I ignored both of her requests and kept it to myself. She approached me about a week later asking if I had seen her requests. It's a bit awkward to say yes and I deleted them, and I gave them a lousy excuse saying, I don't go on my social media that often, so I haven't seen them. She pulls out her phone in the break room and shows me the screen and the request to follow me again. She advised me to take out my phone and accept it. Finally, I told her I wanted to keep my private life separate from work and that I wouldn't accept a request any other time. Unfortunately, She didn't take it too lightly and was upset and obviously offended I said no. She said that social media was outside of work and it was okay for us to be friends. When I told her there were just some things I'd rather keep private, she accused me of having some dangerous, illegal things on my profile and took it to the head hospital manager to reopen my application interview in case I was suspicious of something unprofessional. She stated something like they need to re-screen me and make sure my public profile on the internet wouldn't tarnish the clinic's reputation. Should I have just accepted?
I think the boss has reacted very poorly because their feelings might be hurt. They might be a bit older. Yeah, their feelings are hurt that, this person hasn't accepted them. They've taken it
to the next level.
Absolutely to the next level. And what a shitty, messy situation. I think the person who declined the invitation that's the smart move. Like, you just don't know, like, a lot of social media, like both of you and I use our social media for business purposes, but a lot of people just use it to share photos of their kids and whatever. Like, there is nothing wrong with having some privacy in who you want to share your life with outside of work.
Yeah, well, I definitely don't think OP is the arsehole, not in the slightest. They've politely declined, and it's for this other person who does sound a little bit like a Karen to just take the hint. Like, you've said no, that's okay. Like, your feelings might be a little bit hurt, but to then try to take it up a level when you've tried to say, oh no, this is outside of work, so it's fine for us to be friends, but now you're bringing it back into work and trying to take it up to get them potentially fired for what they want to keep private on their own social media. That would be like going into someone's house and then being so upset about what they're doing in their own home because that's not what you do.
Yeah. That's awful. Did they have an update there?
Yeah, so there's some more info put in. And honestly, like, I've got, like, 2 social medias for everything. Like, back in the day when Facebook was the thing, I wanted to have a Facebook that was just my friends and one for work. And because of, like, the industry we're in, like, both being makeup artists, people wanted to, like, whoever you worked with wanted to follow you on Facebook to keep that connection. So I set up a completely separate Facebook with my, like, makeup name and would only let people add me on that one if they were, like, any sort of work acquaintance. Because I was just like, no, like, the stuff I post on my personal one, I don't want them seeing, because, like, I was young, I was going out, so there'd be photos of me, out drinking, nothing like crazy, but it's like, oh, I don't necessarily want someone that I did, like, one makeup job with to see all of my personal life. Or if I did decline taking on a job because we were, like, freelancers, because I just didn't feel like it, and then said, oh, sorry, I'm unavailable, and then they saw, like, I was out partying, I don't want them to be like, oh, so that's what you're unavailable for. Yeah. So I was, like, very big on keeping that extremely separate, where it's like, if I know you with anything to do with work, you're on this Facebook. If I know you because you're my friend, then you're on this one, which is, like, I post whatever on that.
Yeah, well, I came into hot water because I only ever had one. And the only real thing, like, I think I'm pretty transparent about who I am. So the only thing is, that did happen. Like, if I didn't reply to somebody and then they saw me out with friends or family or whatever, they would take it really, really personally when I ran my own business, because they'd be like, why aren't you responding to me? And I'm like, I have regular job hours like you do. Like, that's it. Like, I can't be responding within an hour on a Sunday or whatever.
So there is some more info. No, I don't have any explicit or illegal activities on my social media. I just didn't want to accept it because there are a few things I don't want her to see. I'm a lesbian in a relationship and I have many photos of my girlfriend and I knew she was somewhat religious and I didn't want her to judge me. I also have photos of my tattoos that they are not aware of because they are not allowed any tattoos at the clinic. I wear long sleeves under my scrubs, so they've never seen them. Make your personal Facebook super private and unsearchable. Then make a professional Facebook page and accept her on that. I have several friends who have done this. That
Similar
is what
to
I
what you
did. Yeah.
Yeah. And good for if you ever want to have to lean on a professional network, you can do that. Or just fucking find them on LinkedIn. Like,
And someone replied to that, oh wow, I've never thought to do that. All my social medias are set to private, but it didn't occur to me to just make a public professional one to ease off any other employees. Your social media these days, when you're applying for a job, they check it.
yeah.
So
yeah,
it's like,
100%.
keep it private if you think it's going to affect at all your ability to be employed. Not the arsehole. You shouldn't have to make up any excuses or justify why you wouldn't want your boss as a friend or a follower on social media. She's an arsehole for insisting and trying to get you in trouble just because you offended her. I'm sure she's way too old to be acting this petty over a denied friendship request.
Yeah, I think that's what's happened. She's taken it personally.
Yeah.
It's putrid, though.
Someone else has replied, it's weird that she tried to use her boss status to pressure OP into accepting her friend's request while simultaneously arguing that she just wanted to be friends outside of work. If she were not the boss, she would have had been forced to accept no sorry the same way any other employee would have. You can't have it both ways. Do you want to see the edit?
Yeah, what's the edit? She's left. She's left the workplace.
Thank you all for putting in your input. They had pulled me aside yesterday for my 3-month review and HR and the boss were there. They brought up the topic of my social media and thankfully HR sided with me. We never signed a disclosure agreement when I got hired regarding my social media, so by law it was out of their jurisdiction and there was practically none of their business. They saw that all of my accounts were marked as private and there was nothing that they could find against me anyway. It's awkward to work with the boss now, but I'm glad it's over and done with. Okay, so this story has been floating around and it's actually a text message thread between a boss and an employee. So I'm going to read it out, and this one is like a cracker that the boss has the audacity. Hey, I'm sorry to do this so late, but there has been a mistake with the annual leave and I'm going to have to cancel your second half of your annual leave this week. You'll need to be in the office Thursday and Friday. Huh? But I'm already in Mexico. Sorry, like I said, there's nothing I can do and I'm going to update the system now saying that you'll be in. But I won't be in. I'm literally in another country. There is no scenario where I can make it back in time. You'll have to move your flights around. I have just checked and there is one on Wednesday evening that you can get. This is a joke, right? You aren't seriously asking me this. Definitely not a joke, and I'm not asking you, I'm telling you the situation. I appreciate that this isn't ideal, but too many people are off Thursday and Friday, so you are going to have to be back in by then. I have just updated the system. You can do whatever you want, even if I wanted to come back in time, which I can't, I wouldn't. And if you keep pushing this, I will be reporting it.
The audacity. I'm going to start off with, like, somebody's poor planning does not result in your emergency. This person was already on leave. And even to...
And in another country.
Yes. And even I once had someone, this was for when I had my own business for a makeup job. And so one of my regulars, like a company that I contracted to, sent me a message and I was overseas and they were so apologetic and they were like, did you want to, like, the opportunity to work's here. Do you want to come back? We'd love to have you back. I was like, oh no, I couldn't possibly. But yeah, like, it's a very different conversation rather than come back, I've scheduled you on Thursday and Friday. Just for 2 days.
Yeah, when they know you're in another country where it always costs to change your flight. So are they going to be taking that cost on? Are you taking that cost on? The loss of the nights you've paid, obviously, at the accommodation you're staying at. Not to mention you're probably on holidays with someone else. Are they now losing that time? Why couldn't, like, if you were short-staffed that day, surely there were other staff members that if they had to come back in, it wouldn't have been that detrimental as someone that's in a different country. Or you just work short staff that day.
Yeah, you just own it. That's just what it is. And I think it's unfair. Like, it's almost like you should have never let everybody go on leave at the same time if that's what you're worried about.
It's your fault.
Yeah.
So a few of the comments are like, y'all don't mute your bosses while you're on annual leave. No job is worth that. Quit on the spot. Don't answer your phone on holidays.
Yeah.
Update your system because I won't be in ever again. Sorry, boss. My return flight is scheduled and I'm unable to move it. Please don't contact me further until I return.
Yeah. I think this is one instance. Just plug your response into ChatGPT and send it over.
Caller ID. Don't answer.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got one last story, and I think that will finish us up for this one about the toxic work environment. Am I the arsehole for giving a very silly, ugly smile in a meeting after my boss said I should smile more? Without even needing to read this, I know she's female and her boss is male.
You think? Of course, the old, you should smile more.
Oh, you'll be so much prettier when you smile.
Ugh, gross.
I work in a tech consulting job, and I'm the only woman on the team.
Right on.
And my boss told me I was coming off harsh with clients, and that I should be more upbeat and smile more. It felt ick. Right away, I texted my group chat of my co-workers without the management that's in it, asking, has the boss man ever told you guys or suggested you should smile more and be happier? It was an immediate round of no's, and a couple of my co-workers asked if he had said that to me and pointed out the double standards. A few of my co-workers joked that some of the clients we have right now don't give them anything to smile about. So I asked if any of them had ever been called harsh, and again it was all a round of no's. I told them that the boss had told me to smile more, and one of my co-workers sent a picture of a girl pulling a silly face with a weird pinch smile and bugged out eyes. Well, the boss man said you needed to smile more. I thought it was hilarious, and I decided I would actually do it. Anyways, I started smiling more around my boss, but I also did it a bit stupidly. Just kept my mouth pinched tense, my gums on display, and purposely pulling back my chin inwards so my neck would get a double chin.
Is it like this?
Yeah, I think so. I think a bit more. Yeah. He asked me at a meeting about a week in what that face was that I was pulling. I said, oh, what face? He said that one just a second ago, and my coworker said, what? She was just smiling. What are you getting at her for? My boss said it looked like she was pulling a face, and my other coworker pulled out his phone where he had some pictures from a recent happy hour where I was pulling the face to make my coworker laugh. And he said, dude, what the hell's wrong with you? That's literally her smile. Look at this picture from last Friday. And all of my co-workers backed him up by saying that's just how I smiled. My boss is looking kind of incredulous, so I clarified that if something makes me spontaneously laugh or grin, it probably looks a little bit more relaxed. But when I'm putting on a smile to be polite or pose for pictures, I guess that's just how I smile. And I was trying to be polite after he let me know that I was coming off harsh in meetings. Anyways, at the next one of my meetings, my boss said I didn't need to change my demeanor much based off his comments because honestly, it was coming off disingenuous and that I would look worse in front of the clients. I just said, yeah, I guess I've really been good at being super peppy without making it look fake. As far as I know, that was the end of it, except before becoming a running joke in the office that I look like Nigel Thornberry.
Oh my gosh. Well, I guess the first takeaway here is, despite the fact she's a one-woman powerhouse in a completely male-dominant, workplace, at least the other gents there sort of had her back. I think that's something nice. Like, it can feel like I've worked in a couple of male-dominant industries, and being the only woman there, it can feel really isolating. So at least her colleagues were like, no, I didn't get that experience. And I think it's something that happens a lot to women. Like, it's our expectation that we're going to be more gentle and come in and handle things a certain way. And, the boss, if the boss had a problem with how, it sounds like she's an account manager or something like that, how she was dealing with comments, how she was dealing with clients, there are far better ways to handle that outside of, just smile a bit more. Like, that's not fair.
Yeah, and that's like very much what the comments are saying, that it was the perfect way to make your point across, like, and that maybe next time the boss might think before he speaks about stuff like that. But yeah, it's really good that her co-workers that have never experienced that still like stood up for her and realized how ridiculous it is, because sometimes when you haven't experienced it, you can't take it like seriously. Like sometimes people go, oh, what's the big deal? It's just a smile. Like that's not a big deal. But yeah, it's good that they had her back and that she kind of, made her point.
Yeah.
But she obviously got voted not the arsehole, and everyone agrees with her in the comments.
Really? Yeah. We love it. We love it, not the arsehole.
So I thought that was a nice little story to end on for this Horrible Bosses Toxic Work Environment episode.
Well, thanks for tuning in. As we always say, we are always looking for stories. We prefer to share your stories than the ones research on the internet. So do be sure to send us a message if you have a story coming up. We also always are letting you know what our next episodes are on social media. So do follow us at Wild Yarns Podcast on our social media channels, because we want to see you. We want to hear from you, and we want your thoughts on these wild yarns as well.
Yeah, so definitely leave some comments if you are watching on YouTube. And yeah, check us out on the Instagram and TikTok to give us your thoughts. But thank you guys so much for listening.